This rough country spare tire relocation bracket is for anyone with a 2018 and up JL that's looking for a way to provide a little bit more space to mount a larger than factory spare tire on the factory spare tire carrier. This is going to be a 1 out of 3 wrenches for the installation, and we'll show you how to get it done in just a second. So for a few generations now, if you want to mount a larger than factory spare tire in the factory spare tire location, you're going to run into a couple of different issues. The first one is going to be space. Your spare tire can hit on your bumper when you're opening and closing the tailgate, and that's what a bracket like this is designed to help fix. This is going to move your factory spare tire mount up about 4 3/4 inches, allowing you to fit a 35-inch spare tire on that factory spare tire mount without having any sort of space issues. Now, there are also going to be some additional issues that you can have when mounting a larger than factory spare tire on this factory spare tire mount, and this bracket is not going to help to remedy those, and most of those are around the weight. This spare tire carrier itself is only designed to carry this factory spare tire weight, so when you put a much larger and heavier spare tire on there, you can have issues with this actually flexing, breaking down, and it could crack and come apart on you. You can also have issues with the tailgate itself, being that all of this is still bolted to those factory spare tire mounts. Especially something like this that puts the spare tire away from the Jeep a little bit more, you're actually creating a little bit more torque on those factory spare tire mounts, and you can end up with the tailgate starting to come apart and creaking, making noises, all of those types of issues. And finally, you can have issues with the hinges themselves, because again, all of this weight is still supported by the factory hinges. So you can end up in a situation where you have to lift up on the end of the tailgate a little bit when you're opening it and closing it, because those hinges have started to sag. So again, a bunch of different issues you can run into. This bracket is going to solve the space issue, but isn't much going to help with the others. So if you're looking for something that's going to create a solution for all of those problems, weight and size, you're going to be wanting to take a look at a bumper mounted spare tire carrier or a tub mounted spare tire carrier that is going to replace the hinges and also beef up the tailgate mounting points. But this is going to be a nice solution if maybe you're just mounting a slightly larger than spare tire. Maybe you want a stopgap to have your slightly larger than spare in the factory location until you're able to save up or find the exact other tire carrier that you want for the long term. Whatever your situation is, this is going to be much less expensive than some of those other choices. So again, it's a pretty good stopgap. This is coming in at right around $80, which I think is a pretty good deal for the quality of build that you're getting. And like we said, this is going to install very easily onto your Jeep at a 1 out of 3 wrenches for the install. So let me show you how to get it done. For this install, you'll need a 13mm socket as well as a T25 Torx socket, and we also use the T40 Torx that came out of the Jeep toolkit. You'll also need a socket for your lug nuts. We needed a 13/16 because we have aftermarket lug nuts on our Jeep. And we also use our trim removal tool. We drove all of those sockets with a small extension and our 3/8 electric impact. So this is going to be a very easy 1 out of 3 wrenches for the installation. Of course, the first step is going to be taking our spare tire off the Jeep, then getting that factory spare tire mount out of the way to get our adapter in place. Now, to get the spare tire off, first you're going to be using a T40 Torx. We're going to be using the one that comes in the Jeep toolkit that comes with your JL. We're going to use that in order to unlock and then remove the camera cover. Then we'll buzz the 3 lug nuts off to get our spare out of the way. Our next step is removing the factory tire carrier. Now, you can just unbolt this and support it somewhere here or have a friend hang on to it for you, and that would mean you wouldn't have to disconnect your wiring harness, but we're going to show you how to disconnect the wiring harness in case you're doing this by yourself. You want to be able to completely remove this and set it aside while you're bolting your adapter in place. So what we're going to do is pop the tailgate open. There's a little piece of plastic trim on the inside that we'll have to remove, and that will let us unplug both our third brake light as well as our camera here, and then we can come back to the outside of the tailgate, unbolt the carrier, and set it aside. So we'll get the tailgate popped open and get that all unplugged. I'll just use my trim removal tool here to pop the plastic trim off the inside of the tailgate. We'll set this aside. And then right here, you'll see the plugs that we need to unplug. There are actually 3 plugs here. We don't have to do anything with the larger plug. This one is for the locking mechanism for the tailgate. That one can stay intact. But this single one here, the white plug, that's gonna be our camera. We'll get that unplugged. And this smaller 2-wire here, this is going to be for our third brake light. So we'll just pull the red safety clip there, press and pull, and get that unplugged as well. So that's really all we're gonna have to do to the inside of the tailgate at this point. We're gonna leave the plastic off because we'll come back to replug these in just a second. Now that we have the tailgate closed again, we'll grab a 13mm socket and we'll remove all of the bolts that hold the factory tire carrier in place. That way we can get it set aside. As we're removing the carrier from the Jeep, we'll also just pull the wiring harness right through the hole here by removing the grommet. As you can see, our plugs come right through, and we can set this aside. At this point, we're ready to install our relocation bracket onto the tailgate using all the factory hardware. Once everything's started by hand, you can tighten it down. And there's just one last step before we can get our factory tire carrier bolted up to our relocation bracket, and that has to do with the wiring. We're gonna do one more step a little bit later to extend the wiring even further, but right now what we need to do is just pull the cables out of this little cable keeper that's in the back of the factory tire carrier. So this is just a press fit, just give them a little bit of pull. Of course you wanna be gentle because they are cables after all, but just pull them out of this little notch. Again, that's all you need to do at this point. Now we can get our tire carrier bolted up to the relocation bracket before moving on to the next step. So as we're getting our tire carrier bolted up to our adapter, you can see that there's a slot right here for the cable to go in. And just make sure that lays nicely so that the carrier isn't pinching the cable between the relocation bracket and itself. Then we have that in there, plenty of play, not pinching anything. We'll get the hardware that comes with the kit and get this bolted up. Now that all 8 of the bolts are started by hand, we can go back through and tighten them down. So the last step before reinstalling our spare tire is just a little bit of additional wire rerouting to give us just a tiny bit of additional length. Now, we tried putting our rubber grommet back into the tailgate hole here just like from factory, and we were able to make it, but the wires were pulled a little bit taut. So we're gonna go ahead and do the next step. If by some chance your wiring is just a little bit more slack, you might be able to get away with skipping this step, but we're gonna show you how to get it done anyway. So what we're gonna do is remove these Torx bolts that are right around here and separate the front half from the back half of the third brake light. And right now there's a wire that runs around the outside of this plastic bracket here. And all we're gonna do is move this section from the outside of these bolt holes to the inside of these bolt holes. And it's just a very small amount, but it's just enough to give us a little bit of slack so these wires aren't taut. So as you can see right here, this is how the wiring was from the factory. It was tucked on the far side of these two bolt holes, just like this. And all we're gonna do is pull it out from there and tuck it to the inside of these bolt holes, and then put our third brake light back together. So as you can see, this is that little bit of slack that we created by rerouting this wiring. We're just gonna pull that down to give us a little bit of additional length down here where we need it. So we can very easily reach right inside here. This is the same wire as this. Pull straight down, that'll take the slack out, and then we'll make sure that all of our bolts are tight. Just pass our connectors back through the tailgate again. As you can see, you have plenty of slack here for the grommet to go in there. Nothing's pulled taut, plenty of length. All we need to do now is get back inside the tailgate and plug everything back in. There are two factory plugs, the 2-wire plug for the third brake light, plug that one in. And then the single wire, which is our camera, plug that in as well. Now we can replace the plastic cover on the inside of the tailgate. Now we'll just get the tailgate closed and get our spare tire put back in place. Now we just put our camera cover back in place, and again, using our T40 Torx, turn it to the locked position, and that's it for the install. So if you are looking for a spare tire relocation bracket that's going to give you a little bit of additional clearance between the tire and the bumper, I would recommend taking a look at this option from Rough Country, and you can find it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.